founders we feature today are exploring the fintech space and presenting a new perspective of crypto to the upcoming market. In this episode, we bring to you Srivar and Srinidhi, who come from completely different backgrounds altogether but found each other through their passion for entrepreneurship. Both of them come from highly decorated educational backgrounds, enough to land them with secure jobs. But they realized early in their career that they want to start something of their own and built Flippy from the discussions that stretched over hours. So, let's listen to them and learn from their strategy.
Yeah. Hi Srinidhi. Hi Srivar. Welcome to VC Story Podcast and awesome journey so far. For those who don't know you yet, can you tell them your story?
Right. Hi, Mohit. I'll take the opportunity to introduce myself and talk a little about Flippy. And then Srinidhi can introduce himself as well. So my name is Srivar Hadalka. I am the co-founder and business head of Flippy, which is a social-first crypto investment platform. I come from a traditional family business background, being a third-generation entrepreneur myself. Before this, I have founded 3 consumer-facing startups in the past. And after the exit of my last startup, which was in between the pandemic, I joined Entrepreneur First, and which is where I met Srinidhi. To give you a brief background about my education, so I completed my schooling and undergraduate from Calcutta. Post which, for my master's, I went to the National University of Singapore. And ever since I was even in college, I knew कि करना खुद का business है. So that clarity of thought was always there from the start. And that's how even after completing my postgrad, I did not actually, to be honest, apply for multiple jobs or look at all the MNCs that were coming on campus to hire. The idea was to come back to India and build something from scratch. So that's my background. And over to you, Srinidhi.
Thanks, Srivar. So I am the co-founder and product head here at Flippy. I come from a very different background as compared to Srivar. So I come from a background where my parents, like my father was getting transferred. तो हर 3 साल में उनका transfer होता था. तो I've lived almost in every part of the country, north, south, east, west, you name it. Gave me a lot of exposure, काफी different type के लोगों से भी मिला. And I was lucky enough to get into IT Kharagpur after my 12th. So I completed my bachelor's and master's in computer science from IIT Kharagpur. And post that, the startup bug was always there. In my second year, actually, I worked very closely with a senior of mine. He was starting up and he was raising and he was building. So सब देख के काफी exciting लगा था. And that is what I expected out of my career. But once I started working at a job, I got into American Express. I completed my internship there, received a pre-placement offer. So उसके बाद I joined as a full-time employee. I soon realized कि the process is very different. कोई सही गलत नहीं है. It's just about expectations क्या है career में. I realized that it is not for me. My options were either I delay the process by उसी जॉब में रहो 2-3 साल और रुको और देखो कि कैसे इवॉल्व होता है वो मेरा करियर वहीं पे, और I quit my job and take charge and do something of my own. Crypto is something that I was always interested in. So back in my high school is when a very close friend of mine introduced me to Bitcoin, and he talked about all of the white papers, क्या क्या चल रहा है, digital money exist करता है ऐसे. It seemed very interesting and cool. So ever since I got introduced, I've never looked back. So even during college, I was continuously exploring. Even after I joined my college, even after I joined my first job, I set up like a small research group over there. I used to conduct research sessions where I used to talk to my coworkers and peers, and somehow like even the senior leaders about what's the entire buzz around blockchain and how can it be used to evolve the banking industry. So ये सब कुछ हुआ, and once like I decided to leave my job, it was very natural for me to take a step in the crypto space itself. And that is when I actually joined Entrepreneur First. And I met Srivar, and Srivar is like, I think he's being a little modest, but he has experience across massively different industries. So both from the perspective of scaling them as well as trying to connect with your consumers, he brings in a lot of insight. And when it comes to understanding the space and understanding the ecosystem and understanding products, I brought in my expertise. And Flippy is essentially the brainchild of our conversations that we used to have when we initially started out in Entrepreneur First.
Got it. Interesting story. Quick question. You guys both were from like top tier colleges, right? So education, what role does an education play in starting up? Does education matter while you are raising funds, connecting to VCs, or starting up your career?
So education definitely, it's not very tangible कि education exactly इस चीज में help करता है. One of the things that like education helps you do is it gives you a sense of validation for yourself, right? It doesn't matter कि IIT से पढ़ा है, NIT से पढ़ा है या फिर कोई tier 2, tier 3 colleges से पढ़ा है. It's obviously brand का एक value रहता है, but at the end of the day, what it unlocks for you is it unlocks a network. तो वो IIT में मैंने क्लासेस में जितना नहीं पढ़ा है, I learned from my peers, and by learning ऐसा नहीं कि बुक पेन पेपर पकड़ के बैठे हैं कि सिखाओ कुछ दोस्त लोगों को बोल रहे हैं. It's more from the perspective of what are they thinking about. And when you're around a set of super ambitious people, and when you're around people who have clear goals in their lives, it kind of helps you pursue that path as well. So that is the primary advantage that I got from my education. And also, getting into good colleges is no easy task, right? कोई भी ऐसे, like, you can't just wake up one day and assume कि I'll get into a good college. So it involves a lot of efforts and discipline. So that getting that early on in your life, in your formative years, right? When you're in your teenage years, that really helps you build certain ethics around your personality and your goals. कि हाँ मेरे को, like, I want to get into a good college, so I'll study, and I'll not just study for like a week or a month, but I'll study for like 2 years. And after getting to college,
so basically there's a lot of misconception कि education matters a lot. ऐसा नहीं है लेकिन, right?
हाँ मतलब it doesn't matter.
safety net वाली बात आ जाती है.
हाँ, it doesn't matter purely in the sense कि एक कोर्स पढ़ के कोई मतलब कुछ अच्छा कर लेगा. It's more from the perspective of is it something that you really want, and how hard are you willing to work for it. वो एक validation खुद को मिल जाता है early on कि हाँ ठीक है, if I'm willing to put in the work, then the world is willing to reward me. So education unlocks that thinking in your head, like at a very fundamental level.
Right. So also probably the question arises from the fact that a lot of people ask this, that initially when you're fundraising, does coming from an IIM or an IIT essentially fast track the process or make it easier? So there are two parts to it, like that's about how you look at it. One, like Srinidhi mentioned, right, it's about validation, not just for yourself, but validation also for the investor who's basing who's placing a bet on you basis 2 hours of conversation, right? So उनको भी कोई तरह का वैलिडेशन चाहिए होता है जिस तरह वो ये डिसाइफर कर सके कि हाँ ये बंदा हासिल करेगा, ये he will go to the limits to essentially achieve what he set out to do. Because getting into an IIT is also something similar, right? Like it is not something that one fine day in class 12 you realize कि मेरे को IIT जाना है and you'll essentially crack it. So it's about perseverance, and that is something that the VCs are also looking for in the founders, and that is why it is more often than not heard that IIT folks are raising a lot of money. So it is a validation that comes for the investors. Secondly, I believe education plays a great role in the thought process also. So it is not just about the degree, it is about how you start thinking, how you look at problems, how you see an opportunity in them, and essentially build on that. So it kind of does help you. You can't discount the fact that education important nahi hai. Maybe like a top tier or just being in the top 1% need not be a criteria for you to be successful in life. But obviously everyone has their hits and misses, right? So even if you can't maybe crack in IIT. Essentially, to be successful, you've got to work a bit harder, prove yourself. Maybe instead of getting like a pre-seed, you'll raise a seed where you've got certain amount of validation in the idea or in the problem that you're trying to solve. That is the only difference. It does not necessarily mean that only IIT folks get it, but probably they do get it easy because they worked really, really hard to get there in the previous 5 to 7 years of their lives.
Makes sense. Moving on. आप दोनों में से who came up with the name Flippy and what does it stand for?
I don't think it came from one specific person actually.
Yeah.
If I can take this viewer, I think the reason why we were so hell-bent on getting a name is because we were like, यार सबसे पहले एक landing page बनाते हैं so that whenever we're reaching out to people to talk, right? Because obviously ऐसे अकेले में रूम में बैठ के कंपनी नहीं बना सकते, so लोगों से बात करना पड़ता है. And people ask कि क्या कर रहे हो, वेबसाइट है क्या तुम्हारा, कुछ रिसोर्सेज भेजो पहले to understand कि कॉल किस बारे में हो रहा है. तो हम लोगों ने सोचा एक लैंडिंग पेज बनाते हैं एक सिंपल सा. एंड बैक देन what we were thinking of is essentially हम लोगों को पता था कि क्रिप्टो में काम करना है, फिनटेक स्पेस में काम करना है, क्रिप्टो में काम करना है, and we want to help people invest. We want to help the next generation of users invest. So initial idea that I and Srivar had discussed was let us make it very simple for people to invest, right? Let's just take spare change that people have whenever they make online spends and invest that spare change into crypto. So that entire concept of flipping came from there, and obviously crypto it's a very known term, flipping.
I thought ये कुछ Flappy Bird से लेना देना होगा इसका.
नहीं, Flappy Bird तो हम लोगों ने सोचा भी नहीं था actually at that point in time. But yeah, so हम लोगों ने पहले ये सोचा था, we had like a different thought process initially, and then obviously बहुत सारे conversations के बाद वो evolve हुआ.
Got it.
What we started out with was essentially the concept of flipping coins to make money, right? So the entire concept of like saving money through small meaningless investments, making like a considerable, creating considerable wealth out of meaningless change. That was what we had in mind. But obviously, I mean, we had a lot of conversations. Uske baad evolve hua. Srivar, you had something to add to that?
No, so essentially what I was also saying is, it's something particularly like apart from the meaning, right? The idea was to make it something which is easy to remember and it's catchy. So Flippy, as like, it's a word that if you hear it once, you'll probably not forget it. It is kind of, it like, plays on your mind. And the idea is that agar aisa brand name hona chahiye, iska recall value is quite high. So from that perspective,
totally makes sense. I guess product logo and the brand name plays a more significant role when you are launching a new company or any new product. Logo ko chipak jana chahiye naam.
Right. So also, I mean, we like, even though, it is to do with investments, the way we look at it is that, we do not come across as a pure investment platform. So it's not boring. It's something that the Gen Z, like, people in that age group of 18 to 29 would be able to relate to. So that's why, I mean, having a very plain, simple name would probably make it boring. So we wanted the name also to be a bit catchy. And as for the logo is concerned, right? So we essentially, if you look at it, it is connecting the dots, which is what we are doing for the people in the crypto space. So right now there is a lot which is happening, but essentially in different pockets. So like, people are seeing tutorial videos on YouTube, following certain followers on Telegram channels, being part of Discord servers, reading on blogs, and like, multiple things across the ecosystem. And essentially Flippy is that app that will, put together all the dots and bring it in one place.
Got it. My next question would be, what role does an acceleration program play in the development of a startup, and how do you select the right startup or right acceleration program for your idea?
Right. So I'd like to just mention quickly कि like acceleration program is not mandatory, but one of the biggest advantages of getting into an accelerator is कोई भी accelerator हो, there's no right or wrong. It depends on what kind of company you're trying to build and what kind of mentorship you need. But what it helps you do is एक structure आ जाता है process में. Early stages of starting up, it's very unorganized, क्योंकि पता नहीं होता कि क्या करना है। वेबसाइट पहले बनाए कि वेबसाइट बनाने के लिए प्रोडक्ट क्या बनाना है, फिर प्रोडक्ट के बारे में पता लगाना है, तो लोगों से बात करना है, फिर पता चलता है कि उनको वेबसाइट चाहिए। तो इट बिकम्स लाइक अ नेवर एंडिंग गेम। तो यू हैव टू स्टार्ट समवेयर एंड यू हैव टू स्टॉप डूइंग सर्टेन थिंग्स ऑल्सो जो कि काम नहीं कर रहे हैं। हम लोग को लगता है कि नहीं, हम लोग थोड़ा और मेहनत करेंगे तो शायद से काम कर जाए। You know, all of these uncertainties are there. So an acceleration program helps you add a lot of structure. I mean, depends. कुछ लोग ज़्यादा अच्छे से करते हैं, कुछ लोग नहीं करते हैं. And second thing is it unlocks a network of people, right? Early stages of starting up में brand नहीं होता है. Like, you know, founders को obviously brand होता है, but as a company you don't have a brand. So you need to ride on another brand to have a certain sense of validation in the ecosystem. For example, if somebody is like a Y Combinator funded startup, right? They can use that YC funded startup. They can use that as a brand to reach out to people. So similarly, when we were in EF, we were like founders in residence at EF, and that has a certain brand value, and it unlocks a certain network for us. So we started reaching out to people saying like, hey, you know what, you were also a part of EF. So let us get on a call. So लोग थोड़ा ज़्यादा willing होता है because it creates a sense of community. And obviously early stages में having an accelerator fund you also gives you that liquidity. कि you're not just unemployed people figuring out something. You're a funded startup actually trying to build or create value in society.
Got it. Initial few weeks, right? So I mean, for people who are wanting to start up, and like, you know, essentially a lot of VCs will also tell you this, ki we would only invest in a business where the founders are working full time, right?
Yep.
What that also entails is that you will have no source of income at that particular point of time, because you're working on a startup which is not yet funded. You're trying to establish something, try to figure out like the problem and how you're going to solve it. And during this, I mean, everyone is not fortunate enough to essentially like be okay with not having any income for say 6 months in a year. So from that perspective, that accelerator program essentially acts as that safety net, gives you that comfort ki while you're at it, your initial like few months are taken care of. So that relief at the back of your head essentially allows you to give 100% and go all out in, like, you know, building that startup of yours. Whereas otherwise there are n number of other problems that you're going to be trying to solve for while building something which might not like give you the best results. So from that perspective, the accelerator program definitely brings together a lot of like-minded people, firstly to like find the right co-founder, which is like, you know, really worked for us. I mean, I would have probably not met Srinidhi had it not been for EF. So उस perspective से एक काफी clear value add है. And secondly, the initial funding, and not even just that, like the individual stipend that you get, which keeps you afloat, also does value for like, you know, young startup founders.
Makes sense. So what would be the best advice you have ever received in your life so far? By anyone, EF or anyone?
So it's difficult to say, but like one EF alumni, Srinidhi and I had, like, you know, consulted multiple times during our time at EF and even post that. And he was always very, very positive and kept pushing us, like, you know, where he essentially made us believe that perseverance can get you anything. So if you're at it and you keep doing what you really, really want to get, you'll eventually make it. So that is something which I believe, like, for a startup founder particularly, is something that is, like, you know, golden words, and it can't be truer. So obviously initially there are a lot of how do I put it, not even failures, they're actually a part of a learning curve. But there are days when we were also very demotivated, dejected. We probably thought, like, you know, nothing's going to be working in our favor. And that thought process of his, where he said that, you know, if you want something and you're sure कि ये करना ही है, तो इसके पीछे लगे रहो कैसे ना कैसे to get it done. So I mean, the idea is to not give up and to continuously keep trying for what you really want. So it could be anything. It could be wanting to get a call with like, one big VC. It could be getting on board some very big company. It could mean trying to even achieve something which might really, really sound like impossible initially. But if you keep at it and you keep doing it with perseverance, you'll probably get there.
Got it. Can you describe what's your typical day is like being an entrepreneur?
So, I mean, to say it in one line, there is no typical day because each day is different. And I mean, talking about myself at least, right? So there are n number of things that are playing on your mind continuously that you need to take care of, and each day looks very different. So there are no fixed routines. On certain days, I won't even lie, I'm like chilling on a weekday, whereas there are Sundays and Saturdays that we've been working from morning to night, call after call, speaking to people in the US at 12:30 in the night. So all sorts of things happen, and the best part is that there is no schedule. So it is far from being monotonous, and every day is kind of different. So at least for me, I can say that with surety that no 2 days look like the same.
Got it. What about you, Srinidhi?
I would add on to that. Actually, basically, it's quite. It's exactly what Shiva mentioned. It's very dynamic in nature, and one of the things is like riding on your previous question, right? One of the things that I've learned to do so far in the past 1 year of starting up is like this is one of the advice that my mom also gave me, like not just in terms of startup, but in terms of like everything. If you have any challenges, like if you have any प्रॉब्लम और लाइक इफ यू सी एनी ऑब्स्टिकल तो भिड़ जाओ, सबसे पहले भिड़ जाओ, बिकॉज जब तक भिड़ोगे नहीं तब तक क्लैरिटी नहीं आएगा कि प्रॉब्लम क्या है. डर के बैठे रहोगे तो पता ही नहीं चलेगा कि प्रॉब्लम क्या है. तो वो द प्रॉब्लम कंपाउंड्स इन योर हेड, बट रियलिटी में वो प्रॉब्लम वैसे का वैसे ही है, दिमाग में बहुत बड़ा हो जाता है. तो कंसिडरिंग दैट, लाइक व्हाट वी आल्सो ट्राई टू डू हियर इज लाइक वी ट्राई एंड आइडेंटिफाई ऑब्स्टिकल्स की क्या क्या होने वाले हैं या फिर क्या क्या हो सकते हैं पोटेंशियली. एंड इट कुड बी एनीथिंग, राइट? कंपनी को लेके हो सकता है, प्रोडक्ट को लेके हो सकता है, या फिर आपस में एक दूसरे के बीच में रिलेशनशिप को लेके हो सकता है कि को फाउंडर रिलेशनशिप, हाउ डू यू वांट टू मूव फॉरवर्ड विद पर्टिकुलर थिंग्स, कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स कैसे रिजॉल्व करें. सब चीजों में वी मेक श्योर दैट वी आर वेरी ओपन एंड ऑनेस्ट दैट वे, बिकॉज एट द एंड ऑफ द डे वो ऑनेस्टी एंड ओपननेस नहीं रहेगा तो यू कांट like resolve, like you won't know where to progress. So typical day essentially involves a lot of this, identifying problems and solving the problems that you identified yesterday. So it's very unique, every day is unique. Calm wala concept, or calm wala concept is like it's basically career on pro mode, hard mode. Pro mode se zyada hard mode.
Got it. I'm definitely gonna start using your mom's advice कि भिड़ जाओ.
हाँ, मतलब basically it's more from the perspective of कि like ideally वो कंपनी आज है नहीं, अगर काम नहीं करोगे तो कंपनी कल भी नहीं रहेगा और एक साल बाद भी नहीं रहेगा. तो भिड़ते रहोगे, problems become more and more amplified, and you'll get the conviction कि हाँ अब resolve करते हैं, कि clearly idea है हम लोगों को कि क्या solve करना है. So that starting up is like a daily life involves doing a lot of that in different ways.
Got it. So what according to you are the traits for a successful founder or a great leader?
Successful founder, I think पता होता तो हम लोग खुद ही कर लेते, but exact answer तो पता नहीं, but what we feel has worked out for us so far is being very honest about everything to ourselves. I mean, obviously to other people ठीक है, उसका इतना ज़्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ता, but if you're being very honest to yourself, then you'll be able to structure your work better. For example, starting up early stages में engineering hiring challenges बहुत ज़्यादा होता है, because you want entrepreneurial people. So this is something that we also went through. We wanted entrepreneurial people, तो हम लोगों ने बहुत ज़्यादा entrepreneurial people hire किए और वो 3 महीने में छोड़ के चले गए कि नहीं हम लोग भी स्टार्टअप करते हैं, मजा आ रहा है इसमें. वो प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं एंड यू हैव टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट एंड ऑनेस्ट टू योरसेल्फ कि एग्जैक्टली व्हाट डू यू वांट. आइडियल केस सिनेरियो होता नहीं है कहीं पे भी. इट्स ऑल लाइक यू हैव टू डील विद द you have to play with the cards you're dealt with. So from that perspective, being very honest to yourself कि हाँ ये काम नहीं कर रहा है, ये चीज़ मैं नहीं कर पाता हूँ, ये चीज़ के लिए मेरे को हायर करना है, या फिर ये चीज़ करने में मेरे को बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम्स आएंगी, तो मेरे को पहले से आई हैव टू फिगर आउट अगर मेरे को ही सॉल्व करना है. इफ आई ओनली हैव टू डू समथिंग, दे हैव टू डू सर्टेन थिंग्स, तो लेट मी फिगर इट आउट माई सेल्फ टाइम देके एंड लेट मी. तो ये एक यू हैव टू मेक दैट अ पार्ट ऑफ योर लाइफ स्टाइल कि कुछ भी ऐसे दिखाने वाली कोई चीज़ नहीं होता ना. प्रोग्रेस हो रहा है तो खुद को ही दिख जाता है, अगर नहीं हो रहा है तो खुद को दिख जाता है. तो बीइंग एबल टू लुक एट दैट एंड मेक सेंस खुद से विदाउट हैविंग समबडी एल्स कम इन एंड से कि नहीं ये चीज़ अच्छे से नहीं हो रहा है, फिर ये काम अच्छे से नहीं हो रहा है. बीइंग एबल टू फिगर दैट आउट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट.
And what about you, Srivar?
I mean, so there is no definition, right? Like, I kind of agree with what Srinidhi said.
Got it. So, what type of culture are you trying to incorporate in your company?
Right. So that's a good question, and that's something which we particularly are very kind of particular about. Even during the employment calls, right? It's all about the person naturally fitting into the company and the kind of culture we've built. So I mean, so far we are a team of 12 very, very young, very enterprising people, like ready to hustle, and no day at work essentially would feel like they are at work, because essentially everyone is enjoying what they really, really do. So even though there is a lot of ownership, a lot of responsibilities, and hard deadlines to meet, but it is the team is built in such a way that everyone is loving what they're doing, and that is one reason why even during stressful times people are not cracking up and essentially being able to deliver what's been promised. And yeah, Srinidhi could add to that. He's essentially been setting the culture and the trend in the company with channels around music playlists, memes, a lot of fun things. So yeah.
So basically,
Work hard and play hard.
Yeah, work hard and play hard. So it's primarily from the perspective of hiring someone at this early stage is asking people for a huge favor, right? Because they're also risking their careers, risking the next bunch of years, next 5 years of their lives. They're committing to Flippy, and it's very important that they. Obviously, I mean, it's very important that they have fun working all of this, but it's very important that it ties into their individual career goals. उनको खुद को life में जो करना है, वो Flippy में करे वो. So from that perspective, what I personally work on is giving people extremely high visibility and ownership. And everybody is like a product guy at Flippy. If you talk to any of the people who have worked with us in the past, सब लोग प्रोडक्ट के बारे में अच्छे से बताएंगे. एवरीबडी इज कमिटेड. सबको पता है कि अपने यूजर्स को क्या अपने यूजर्स के लिए क्या बिल्ड करना है. तो कल्चर ऑफ हाई ओनरशिप एंड हाई ग्रोथ इज व्हाट वी particularly want to build here at Flippy. And it's not just for now, there's something that we want to focus on over the next couple of years here at Flippy as well. Anybody who joins the company has very high visibility and very high ownership over their work. So वो validation भी उनको लगेगा. कुछ success है तो it all comes down to them. And if there is a failure, it's ultimately up to them to fix it. So एक ownership वाले culture में it helps them grow both as an individual and as a professional.
Got it. So yeah, I guess this was it, and thank you so much for the gyan you guys shared with us. Before moving on, do you guys have any parting advice for our listener, basically from those who are from tier 2, tier 3 city who want to start up but are afraid to start up?
I would like to mention that don't focus too much on your like book learning or education. A lot of experiences that you will go through in your life will essentially shape who you are as a person. the validation that you need, all the validation that you need to move forward with your career is going to come from yourself. So doesn't matter if you have a fancy degree or a fancy job. All that matters is that you have that resolve कि हाँ कुछ करना है, and I will do that. अगर मेरे आसपास कोई मेरे को support नहीं कर रहा, even then I will do that. अगर वो grit and वो hustle वाला culture if you keep maintaining over a period of time, तो लोग notice करना शुरू कर देते हैं. शुरुआत में अगर कोई notice भी नहीं कर रहा, if you keep at it, तो लोग देख के बोलेंगे कि नहीं वो बंदा तो like that person is essentially driven. तो rest of the things जो भी है, education हो गया, degree हो गया, job हो गया, ये सब proxy है. Actual thing that you should value in yourself and other people value in you is your hustle and is your grit. तो वो किसी भी तरीके से तुम लोग शो कर सकते हो. It's not just through education या it's not just through a fancy job.
Got it.
Right,
Shiva, you have anything to? Yeah.
Yeah, if I were to like give that advice, essentially abhi with Shark Tank India, right? The startup culture and the popularity across the country has, I'm sure, grown multifold. But this is something I think the Sharks also mentioned in a couple of episodes, where the idea is that you really need to solve a real problem rather than running after valuation. So अगर मन में ये सोच के निकलेंगे कि मतलब 100 करोड़ की कंपनी बनानी है, 100 करोड़ का वैल्यूएशन, and there is no real problem that they're trying to solve, that company will never float. The base, or like when you're starting up, essentially the problem needs to be real. You need to have a very clear idea about how you're going to solve it, and essentially be married to that problem statement. कि मतलब ऐसे अगर सॉल्व नहीं हुआ तो मैं इसका दूसरा कोई उपाय खोजूंगा, बट ये प्रॉब्लम रियल है और मुझे इसे सॉल्व करनी है, रादर देन गोइंग आफ्टर बज़वर्ड्स कि अरे अभी फिनटेक में फंडिंग बहुत आ रही है तो चलो फिनटेक स्टार्टअप करते हैं या क्रिप्टो स्टार्टअप करते हैं, बिकॉज इट साउंड्स गुड एंड ऑब्वियसली आई मीन इट इज गुड टू हियर कि अरे क्रिप्टो में फंडिंग बहुत आराम से मिल रही है तो चलो क्रिप्टो स्टार्टअप बनाते हैं. एंड आई एम नॉट इवन जोकिंग व्हेन आई से दिस, बट देयर आर एटलीस्ट 15 people who reached out to me on LinkedIn saying कि मुझे crypto startup करना है. And when I asked them कि what is the thought process, the idea, they're like नहीं हम crypto में new है but मुझे crypto startup करना है. So if with that thought process it becomes rather difficult to actually get somewhere, right? Like the problem needs to be real and what you're trying to build, you really need to be married to that. कि मतलब अगर मुझे ये problem solve करना है तो जब तक इस solution problem का solution मुझे नहीं मिलेगा मैं ऐसे ही build करूंगा, keep building on top, and essentially that hustle is what pays off, not your dream of actually getting 100 crore or 1,000 crore valuation. So like we saw, right, Piyush Bansal had essentially funded this guy, the Jugadu Kamlesh. So he essentially what he cared about was solving for real world problems, like like farmers के लिए उसे, he was married to the problem statement कि मुझे Indian farmers का life better बनाना है. And that is the reason he got what he wanted to, not because there were many other companies that came in with saying कि like मुझे 300 crore का valuation चाहिए and 500 crore का valuation, and nothing really works out. So the idea is, if you're solving a real problem, all of that will flow in as a part of the bigger picture. But if that is the only picture, then nothing really moves forward. So
yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Idea ही नहीं पता तो like भेड़ चाल चल के भी फायदा नहीं है.
Exactly. I mean, people don't start up because startup sounds cool, but
exactly.
startup
काफी ज़्यादा popularize कर दिया इसको. Yeah.
Right. And I believe with Shark Tank it will become even more mainstream. And I mean, I just hope it moves in the positive direction with real entrepreneurs getting into the space.
Got it. Guys, thank you so much for coming here and talking to us. It was great having you, and have a wonderful day and all the best with Flippy.
Sure. Thanks, Mohit.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.